Hypothetical situation, war breaks out between US and Poland. Which side do you fight on? Welcome back to Heart of Poland, and with me is a very special guest, someone I haven't seen for a little while, and I'm very happy he's here. Ryan Socash is easily one of the biggest content creators on Poland. He has well over 170,000 subscribers, perhaps 175,000 subscribers on Facebook and YouTube. And he's also an established businessman in the country, as well as, can I call you a former musician? Ryan, did you ever really give up that?
Correct. That ship has sailed.
The ship has sailed,
yeah.
Okay. You're basically a child of Polish America, or American of Polish descendants, and a lot of your films are about your identity and rediscovering your identity in Poland.
Correct.
Now, tell me, I often notice that a lot of your interviews, the questions kind of get repeated. Is there a question that people don't ask you that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, there was actually one question that I received with you when we were together at a TV interview in, well, I don't remember what the program was, but the journalist asked us, come on guys, are you playing the Polish complex? And I thought it was a brilliant question, because you really have to stop and think about it. If it were the 1990s, I think coming here, vlogging in English, it would probably have made you a rock star overnight entirely. But as a husband to a beautiful Polish wife and father to 2 children, you know, you wouldn't be dedicating all of this time to making films about a topic that you don't care about from the heart, because the truth is that, in my opinion, the Polish complex, it has either sailed or transformed itself into a desire to ride, you know, American scooters and watch Netflix and follow kind of Western trends altogether. But people like us who are passionate about Poland, I think, resonate with other people who are also passionate about the country or have heritage or are interested in this space. So the Polish complex is an interesting topic because I think that...
Do you like talking about it? I mean, is it... Because basically we're talking about insecurity and you know, foreigners saying nice things about us, and I say us now because we're both Polish.
Yeah.
I'm almost citizen, you have been for quite some time. You know, it makes us feel good about ourselves, but it comes from a place of insecurity, and that can be sometimes maybe a little bit embarrassing to talk about.
And I think that's why the question moved me so much, because on the one hand, I can make many excuses, as I just did, for why I'm not playing for the Polish complex and that it's transformed itself into driving scooters around Warsaw. But on the other hand, I suppose that if we went back to our native countries and made these same patriotic style videos about it, we wouldn't receive the same amount of attention. In fact, we would probably receive mockery for that. So I like the question because it challenges me as an individual. It obviously, insecurity is a thing that anything undignified that I've done in my life, as I think is the case with most people who are willing to open up and talk about it, stems from insecurity. And going back to heritage, you might also make the argument that that is connected to a deeper insecurity that I have as an American, because you're born into a country where there's no connection to your land by your blood. It's purely multicultural, which in the context of the United States is a great thing. That is our identity. We're Americans because we were born there. End of story. We're Americans because we moved there and went through the formal process. End of story. Here in Poland, no such device, right? And even if you become a Polish citizen, it might not make you be deemable as a Pole in the eyes of other Poles, right? I even thought about things like my heritage. My great-grandparents left this country. In fact, I still have one living cousin of my great-grandmother who I visited just last Friday. And she told me, I was a cousin of your great-grandmother, which makes me like your grandmother, which is a beautiful sentiment. But on the other hand, the people who lived here before, at times they were Austrian citizens, right? So does citizenship make you Polish? I just kind of sum it down to it's a personal experience that only you can deem, and you can't really elect who's Polish and who's not of your opinion. So, yeah, it does stem from insecurity.
What question, Ryan, irritates you most that people ask you? Is it, why did you come to Poland? Or is that just a question you've been asked that so many times?
No, what I hate is the response. It's not the question that bothers me. I'm happy to say why I came to Poland, although almost none of those reasons are applicable today because Poland has changed so much. But what I hate is how dismissive people are when, of course, they find out that I have a Polish wife. Like, as if I wouldn't have found a wife in another country, as if human beings don't fall in love wherever they go. And I don't think that it's fair to diminish my wife to a Polish woman, and that's why I chose her. She has a million qualities beyond just that one. However, I do admit, I don't mind that she's Polish because I'm into Polish culture, but it kind of just lump sums me into all the rest of the foreigners, men especially, who have moved to Poland. And so I do become a little bit annoyed with that response to the question.
Yeah, I can empathise with that. What's the film you're most proudest of?
There are two that really resonate with me. One is discovering my lost Polish family. So I did a cooperation with the Podkarpackie Voidship. I have currently an ongoing cooperation with them. And they wanted to feature the first flight between Newark, New Jersey and Rzeszów. And they wanted for me to be on that inaugural flight, which was cool enough in and of itself. But the whole context of it was that there were family members in Podkarpackie who I didn't know how to find. I knew that they were there, but I had no idea how to find them. So the film is really about discovering these people, meeting these people, and kind of reconnecting the family circle that had been broken because my great-grandma, she diligently kept in touch with them. When I came to these people's house, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps even thinking about it. They had more photos of my own family than I have. Yeah. My father, everyone. And so as someone who, of course, is aspiring to be a Pole, this affirmation of my blood connection to the land was priceless beyond words. And that's why I go back to them and I call them and I keep in touch and hone this connection beyond just the film, but of what was established for my great-grandmother. So that was one thing. And the second video I did a little bit more recently. I went to the Skansen in Sanok, which is the largest open-air museum in Poland. And I made another heritage video, kind of this time more honoring the legacy of my father who passed away a few years back. I suppose you might remember that was a hard time for me in general because I was estranged from him for many years. And what I found when I went back to his house, and it's very apparent and evident in the video, is that the Skansen, it recaptures traditional Polish homes, and when I went to my father's house to clean out his personal belongings, there were so many parallels between his home and this home that even a baby would be able to see it. And so again, this coming back here, sitting here with you in the capital of the country, and knowing that my family never lost the legacy or the passion for their Polish heritage makes me feel very satisfied that I was able to close the family circle in a sense. So those are my two favorites.
Awesome. Now I have to go the other way and say, what film are you least proud of, and is it still on the internet?
Oh, there are a lot of them that I would delete tomorrow if people weren't still watching them. Yeah, well, I'll tell you, probably one of my most favorite videos. I have videos, by the way, from Turkey, from Ukraine, from Slovakia, from Qatar, from the United States, many, many places that Polish people, well, they don't care to watch because it's not about Poland. So it's not just about Poland, but people were always asking me the question, why did you leave America? Why did you come to Poland? You get that less now because Poland has a developed economy and there's jobs and it's clear, but early 2000s, it wasn't the case at all. And so finally, I'm like, all right, once and for all, I'm just going to record an answer to this question. People ask it to me, I'm going to send them the video. So that's why I left America for Poland, literally. What I didn't expect is that the media would pick it up, that it would be shared a bunch of times. And I think the film has just under, if not 1 million views. Yeah. So obviously it's a question that people were curious about. I was prevalent in the media, in music before then, so there was also a base of people who were generally kind of curious, like, what is this weird American doing here, messing around with Polish bands? It doesn't make sense. And so to be honest with you, to be really, really honest, as embarrassed as I am almost to admit it, I hate that video, and I would take it down tomorrow because it trivializes, like the reaction to it trivializes my sentiment to being Polish or to living in Poland, and it makes me look like an attention whore.
I can empathise with that. There's a fair number of videos I'd probably take down if, if the viewing ratings weren't so bad. From the outside, people are seeing you travelling around Poland, you're visiting places, you're having amazing experiences. You very consciously turn your social media off, and you did a film about that as well. What's the bit that people don't understand about being Ryan Socash?
They don't see the logistics behind all this. They don't know that 90% of what I actually do has almost no association with my public activities. So I'm the managing director and shareholder of a pretty major media company here in Warsaw. But the logistics that go behind all of that to enable me to do these things is pretty unbelievable. I mean, I was trying to calculate just the expense of it, and the amount of human hours that go into the organization and the negotiations and the travel logistics. And I think that's one thing people don't think about when they want to go into media, because all they know is they saw a Facebook video posted up or a YouTube video posted up. They don't know about actually the physical sacrifice that was made in order to do that, especially when you aspire to do higher production quality, which for the past 2 years I've been very dedicated to. And then sustaining that as you grow older and as your priorities shift from having a successful career in the media to being a good father and spending the fleeting time that you have with your children, you find yourself very often waking up in hotels. Actually, you don't even know where you woke up because you slept in hotels 5 nights before, different hotels every night. And B, you think, what am I doing here? What is this for? I want to be with my kids. But I've chosen this path. This is how I provide for my children. It's not going to change in the immediate future. It's not a path that I would actually recommend for almost anyone, because even being marginally noticed in the media takes years and decades even of sacrifice.
What's changed about Poland? What do you miss? Because you came 2001, if I remember rightly.
2000 was my first visit
2000.
here. Yeah, and I was in Tarnów about a day ago, and that's like a little time capsule, I think, of what Poland was the first time I saw it, other than some renovations. Obviously, not much has changed there. It's what I adored about Poland so much was the admiration for simplicity, because in a place where people didn't have cash and actually didn't have really prospect to get cash, they had to value relationships. They had to value simple creativity, playing an acoustic guitar near a bonfire. I remember I went on a trip to Missouri from Krakow, and it was like I think a 12-hour train ride, miserable train ride, hot, people smoking in the train, drinking in the train, but these were the vacations of the Poles, so they made it the best holiday they could, and they really had a blast. And in today's Poland, we're so distracted by consumption. I mean, mass consumption, and every new trend of electronic devices or social media that comes, people are just eating it up. So like I said earlier, I think the Polish complex has changed in a way that now it's applied more to consumerism. And I know that there's no revert to what it was before. I know that actually in the interest of the people of Poland, reverting to what it was before would be a disaster. But those simple things that were in young Polish people, especially in this new generation, I don't see whatsoever. They might as well be American kids, many of them, and that breaks my heart.
Ryan, if you could be one other Polish person living now, who would that be?
Oh, that's a good question. You caught me off guard a little bit with that question.
Or dead.
Honestly.
I'll give you a slightly wider field of living or dead.
Living or dead? Am I allowed to think about this?
You
or is this one of those things that I have to answer
I'll hit you with another zinger though, which you may mind.
like right away? Okay. So I have an answer for that. I think that I would be Pope John Paul II, because everyone loves him. No one's got a problem with him. He was a huge global figure. He affected positive change in the world. I guess most people know I'm not particularly religious, so I would have to hone that in a little bit. But there you go. There's your answer. There's your answer.
Okay. Hypothetical situation. War breaks out between US and Poland. Which side do you fight on?
I'm staying here. That's clear. There's
And
no
fighting?
Yes. Yes, there's no hesitation for that. You hear about those wars where brother fights brother because they were born on different sides of a wall. And there's no question in my mind, everyone in my life is Polish. Everyone in my life is here. And these people gave me opportunities, opportunities that actually I feel unworthy of, in a sense. Opportunities I wouldn't have had anywhere else. Literally, when I first moved to Poland, and I had no prospect for a job, and no one had jobs, actually. People were taking me into their home to practice English, and not only did they give me some of the little money that they had, but they fed me because it was apparent to them that I was hungry. In America, I suppose I end up on the street in that same scenario. So I'm definitely not like a war-hungry person by any measure, but my loyalty is here, undoubtedly. But let's just clarify, Poland and the United States are like the greatest allies on earth, so that's very hypothetical.
That is extremely hypothetical. No more hypothetical than the war between the UK and Poland.
Yeah.
I want to now ask you to go back to the 8-year-old you. You've been very open about how you were diagnosed with learning disabilities.
Correct.
And I think that openness is admirable. What would you say to the 8-year-old Ryan Socash?
Put on your seatbelt because it's going to be a crazy, unexpected ride. To be fair, the learning disability became more prevalent at the same time that parents got divorced, financial struggle occurred, a lot of other changes happened, and who knows what would have happened without those other factors. But as you know, because we spent a lot of time together privately even, I was put into what was called a self-contained learning environment. So it was like a class with the people who had a range of disorders, from behavioral disorders, being violent, to what I could only describe as mental retardation. So when you went to school, you didn't know if you were going to get drooled on or stabbed. And that's kind of how it looked for the most formative years of my life. That being said, I think that being isolated and humiliated in that way gave me a much thicker skin than a lot of people had, and that allowed me to make, well, I could only say like kind of courageous moves, like going to a country where you don't speak the language and there is no prospect for you. And I didn't know that Poland was going to join the EU and become a developed market, and that actually would become a popular tourist destination, all that. No, it wasn't like that at all back then. And I can't say that it was a smart move. It was a lucky move, prompted by intuition. And well, the TV show Gotowany, I starred on it. I won it, in fact, and I met up with the director of that program a couple of times afterwards, and she also told me that she had an interesting childhood. Let's say we had some similarities, and I told her I wouldn't change a thing because the abuse I went through made me who I was. And she said, no, but Ryan, maybe you always were who you were, and if you were around positivity, you'd be capable of much more today. I think it was a fair assessment. Well,
there's a thought. Ryan, what place in Poland have you not yet visited that you want to visit?
That's a good question. Szczecin. That's the last place. And Krynica Morski. Those are two places. Obviously, there's a lot of little villages, but I think I've even seen most of those.
Yeah.
And I will be going to Szczecin probably by the end of the summer. So I'll have it off my list. And at this point, it's really about going back to places that I love. I love Podkarpackie. I love Bieszczady Mountains. I love the Hel Peninsula. It's incredible. I go there several times a year and spend time with my family there. So yeah, I actually, if I can avoid it, I don't even go out of Poland. I prefer the family holidays here. It's comfortable and nice.
Although not necessarily cheaper. Ryan, thank you very much for being a very engaging, thoughtful and insightful guest. I wish we had another half an hour to talk, but we're not doing a podcast or a live program, so we'll have to call it there. You can check out Ryan's work in the many different places where he appears on social media, Facebook, YouTube as well. And I do encourage you to follow The First News, share this episode, and look for more of the fascinating discussions with fascinating people leading fascinating lives on the heart of Poland. I'll see you again for the next program.